So we are going on to Simone de Beauvoir, 1908 to 1986, and she has written the book The Second Sex. Okay, let's look into her background. She was born in 1908. She was raised in a strict Catholic household, and she abandoned her faith in her early teens and remained an atheist for the rest of her life. So, she did not consider herself a philosopher, Simone de Beauvoir. She had a significant influence on both feminist existentialism and feminist theory. She wrote novels, essays, biographies, autobiographies on philosophy, politics, social issues, on varied subjects she used to write. And she was known for her open, lifelong relationship with her French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. So, the thing is that when people hear of Simone de Beauvoir, they don't think of the work she does, they think of her private life. That is the main thing. So, people take interviews of her, the first thing they'll ask about, who you slept with, where were you, how was Jean-Paul, and they used to only talk about her personal life. They were curious about, they were not interested in the woman's intelligent woman that she was, the philosopher that she was. They were not bothered about that. And if you look into her childhood, she was raised in a strict Catholic household. So she had been sent to convent schools as a youth. Mostly it happens that when you're raised in a very strict household, you tend to become a rebel later on because you have been repressed, from any kind of experimentation. So she had been sent to convent schools as a youth. She was deeply religious as a child, and at one point she wanted to become a nun. And at the age of 14, she started questioning her faith when she saw a lot of changes taking place, and she witnessed a lot of tragedies that were happening throughout her life. And she abandoned her faith in her early teens, and she remained an atheist for the rest of her life. So this is about Simone de Beauvoir. Now about her treatise. This is The Second Sex, the treatise. Now it was written in French and then it's been translated into various languages. So it was published in 1949. It is a major work of feminist philosophy and it's considered the starting point of the second wave of feminism. So this book was written in 2 volumes. Beauvoir's formulation that one is not born but rather becomes a woman. That is, one is not born a woman but becomes a woman. That is what she's trying to say. That distinguishes the terms sex and gender. So I think I covered the concept of sex and gender yesterday. That was a short thing, so you can look into that on it. So this is what she says. This is a very famous saying of hers: one is not born but rather becomes a woman. That means when you're born, everybody is born the same. Only thing, biologically there is some difference in you. Other than that, male and female organs, that's the only difference. But when your actions, the way you behave, the way all those other traits are going to be instilled in you, impinged into you by society, by your immediate family members, by the society, by the institutions where you go for studying. All these, society and everything, they are going to come and they are going to distinguish you and say that, okay, you belong to this gender, you are this, so you behave like this, you are that, you behave like that. So this is what was so this is why she says one is not born but rather becomes a woman. So what was the situation of the world like in the case of Woolf? Also, we looked into the world view, what was happening in society, the age at that time. So here, what was the world situation? So when this book was released, what was the situation? The World War II was over. Allies had won the war. And Eurocentrism was on the decline. Europe was actually supposed to be the strong man around the place, but now they have started declining. And it was US that was coming up, the West, and then Russia also were also coming up. So Eurocentrism was on the decline. Europe was economically and politically weak after the war. There was a lot of death and destruction and property and life and everything. And economically also, they were being literally, it was on the downhill. So the empire was being dismantled. British Empire, so many colonies she had. India was also a part of it, one of the major colonies of Britain. So the empire was being dismantled. The decline in the belief of Eurocentric might was accompanied by a decline in Eurocentric thought as well. So all everything that whatever is being said in Europe by those people in Europe, their beliefs and everything are to be followed. They are like the word of law. That was declining. The belief was declining. So also the thought, the Eurocentric thought was also on the decline, and it was believed that European thought was the cause of this world war. It had caused this world war, and the Beauvoir says that it is religion is not only an instrument of oppression but also deception. She believed that it was androcentric. That means it was male centered. That is, so that's why she was an atheist. She did not believe in this, in Christianity. She said everything, all the laws and everything, which all that you learn in the church, in religion, it is all from the man's point of view. There is no woman's point of view in here. So she did not believe in this. So she said it's an instrument of oppression and also deception, deceiving the people, deceiving the creating a gender divide. And what was the position of women during World War II? So here, when the war is on, what happens is there is a lot of resources that you need. The men are on the fighting front, and the women are required to carry out something so that they can, the economy can stand up, to boost the economic production. So women entered the workforce. They were encouraged to enter the workforce, and as a result of this, there were two categories of women also came out into this in this workforce. They were professionals and the business women. So compared to the time of Woolf, women had access to higher education. If you compare it to Virginia Woolf's time, women did have access to higher education, and they also had the right to vote. At least two generations of women had got this privilege. And so in that case, you will see that the women were on, it was a better situation for the women here. In Simone de Beauvoir's time, the situation was definitely better. And the Russian Revolution had overthrown the Tsarist regime, and they had adopted socialism. So, and they wanted everything is supposed to be on an equal footing, including for the women. So they developed social feminism, and there was a lot of what you call welfare schemes were there for women. All these things were going on to liberate the women in Russia. But unfortunately, they had to discontinue this because of some economic and political crisis that was taking place. But you can say that at least in theory, this whole thing was there. At least there was social feminism present in theory, if not in reality. So, what does the second sex, the book, contain? It caused a wave of scandal, particularly in France, throughout and also throughout the world, particularly in France. So, her work, for the first time, started discussing subjects which seem to be a common thing nowadays, but during those days they were considered taboo, such as lesbianism, prostitution, abortion, contraception. All these topics were not discussed during that time. So when she had put it out in her book, then it was a big, oh, don't, this is, you have to censor this book, this, nobody should read it. What all rubbish is being spoken, because the patriarchs, the male members, they said, no, this is, they started going hammer and tongs on this book. It also criticized the drudgery of wifehood and women's lot within the domestic sphere. It also said, women should not get married and have children, all these kind of things she started writing. As well as it was daring to suggest that motherhood is not the pinnacle of women's existence. That means you're not born to become a mother. That is not your that is not why you were born. So all these kind of statements she used to make. She was really avant-garde, I think, in that way. The Beauvoir argued that patriarchal ideology that provides our understanding of these issues serves the interest of men. So she says that whatever ideology is there, it is serving only the men's interest at the expense of women, and positions them as dependent on men. And so, in such a way that women are made dependent on man. This is what Beauvoir was trying to say in her book. And here she also says that woman has been characterized as the other. So here, man occupies the role of the self or sub. So here, what is happening is she says that man has considered himself that I am the person, the one and only, and you are nobody. You are nothing without me. So everything centers around me. The world, all the women rather, revolves around me. And so the man occupies the role of the self or subject, and woman as the object, and she is the other. She is nobody. This otherness posits man as a norm and woman as the aberration. You're born a woman. You're a big mistake. It's a mistake that you were born. It just so happened that you are the otherness. And what happens is, as a result of this, there was inequality. Otherness was breeding inequality. So woman is always defined. There is no definition for a woman. She's always defined in relation to man. And what happened? Inequality. And as a result of inequality, there was a hostility between the man and woman. And the woman's role is conditioned. Also, another thing you should realize is that a woman's role is conditioned by the biological fact of sex. She is the one who is going to to reproduce. Her only role is as a reproducer. And so in that case, there was a kind of thing that she had to be subordinate to man. So that was one factor that was against the woman, the very fact that she was conditioned by the biological fact of sex. So how did female humans come to occupy a subordinate position in society? How did they come? Humans, here male and female, how did they come to occupy subordinate? How did this female human come to occupy a subordinate position in society, a lower position in society? So what Beauvoir does is she turns to biology, psychoanalysis, and historical materialism. And these disciplines, these three disciplines, biology, psychoanalysis, and historical materialism, they reveal essential, reveal essential differences between men and women, which cannot be disputed, but it does not provide a justification for women's inferiority. Okay, biology is one thing. Physically you're different. Psychoanalysis, okay, the man and the woman are, psychologically also they are a bit different. And historical materialism. What is historical materialism? See, you are focusing on, this is basically Marxist. You focus on human society and their development through history, and you argue that history is the result of material conditions rather than ideas. It's a result of things that are taking place, and it's not the result of ideals, not ideas, ideals. So she says, okay, we cannot dispute about biology, psychoanalysis, and historical materialism, but that still does not give you a license to justify that a woman is inferior. Just because biologically I'm different, does that mean that I'm inferior? No. So, and the thing is that these men take women's inferior destiny for granted. They say, okay, she is born inferior. So, and this is the thing that has been built up in society throughout, without a break. So everybody believes in this, and it's being instilled in this, and it's not just the men who believe, it is also the women who are, who have been conditioned to believe this particular thing. So she traces the female development through its formative stages, that is, childhood, youth, and sexual initiation. Her goal is to prove that women are not born feminine but shaped by 1,000 external processes. So this is that, that famous statement that she says, no, they are not born but they become. So her goal is to prove that you are not born feminine with those traits, but you're shaped by certain factors outside of which, that is the one that results in you being typecast as a feminine. So at each stage, like in the stage, mean as a girl, you're conditioned to accept passivity. You're supposed to be passive. You're supposed to be dependent. You are supposed to be quiet. You're not supposed to say anything. All those, and inwardness and repetition, all these things, all the forces in society conspire to deprive her of subjectivity and flatten her into an object. So that means she is made into an object because of this. And in adulthood, the woman performs three major functions. So in the in girlhood, she is taught, about housework, and she's told about, you have to prepare yourself for pleasing the man, and you have to accept the dissatisfying life of housework, childbearing, and sexual slavishness. So all this is being taught during the younger years itself, before she becomes an adult. And in adulthood, she performs these three major functions: that's of a wife, a mother, and an entertainer. So this is she reflects on also on the trauma of old age. In the old age, now what happens, the woman loses her reproductive capacity. So she loses the primary purpose, because the primary purpose of a woman is to reproduce. And when she loses her primary purpose, then therefore she loses her identity. So this is what Beauvoir says in her essay, how people are conditioned, and that women are not born feminine but they are shaped by 1,000 external processes. So what happens internally, the woman is like a puppet, like a marionette. She's being told to do this, told to do that, she does it. She doesn't have a voice of her own. So de Beauvoir reiterates that a woman's character is a result of her situation. So woman's character is a result of a situation. That is, why is a woman in such a place? It is because of her character. Her mediocrity, complacency, lack of accomplishment, laziness, passivity, all these qualities are the consequences of her subordination and not the cause. That means, why is a woman behaving like this? The reason is not because she is because she is lazy and passive and all that. It's because of her subordination. Her subordination has made her become complacent and ill accomplished and lazy and passive, because she's been told, you're not good in this, you're not good in that, there is nothing that you can do. So the consequences of her subordination has made her become mediocre. This is it. And the position of women unique among oppressed sections of humankind. So that means, now another thing you also notice is that women are unique among the oppressed sections of humankind. If you look at it in you have different groups, racial groups, and different thing, people trying to come out of their oppressive or coming out of their situations, protests and things like that. But if you look at women as such, what is the position of women? They are numerically equal to their oppressors. That is same. The man woman ratio is the same. And like, unlike other categories that are persecuted on grounds of race, women don't have a shared history. Then, unlike those oppressed on grounds of class, that is the proletariat, women have always existed. So there is a lack of organization as a homogeneous group, unable to demolish the myth of the other. So the thing is that it is not possible for all the women to come together and do something, because they have, because a woman is a subset of the entire human race. They are a part of a thing. Like, for example, you have a certain movement that is taking place there. That movement consists of men and women. It is not just men only. So women are a part of that movement. So, but here, if you have a movement where only women are concerned, it is not possible, because certain women will agree and some women will not agree to join that movement. So, in this case, but she also says that from Beauvoir's work, she says that women and men are essentially free agents, they are free, but they are compelled by biological necessity to accept subordination. They are compelled by biological necessity to accept subordination. Only in work a woman can achieve autonomy. That's why she again says that you need to work, you need to be economically independent, you need to be financially independent. Only then you can achieve an autonomy. So if a woman can support herself, then she can achieve some kind of liberation. So this is something similar to what even Woolf was talking about, what Beauvoir is saying. Okay. So there is a critique of the second sex. What is a critique? That is how many people are for and how many are against. So here they say that she's interpreted. The critics say that she's applying Sartre's philosophy to women, because Sartre was a existentialist. They're saying that, okay, whatever he says and whatever he believed in, she is just being like a mouthpiece. She is just interpreting whatever he says. That is applying, only that's what she is doing. And she is often left out of philosophical textbooks. Like I said earlier, she is a very good philosopher, but then during those days there were no women philosophers. Men did not feel they did not feel that there will be women philosophers. They only believed in males being philosophers. So here she was left out of philosophical textbooks, and the patriarchal system fails to acknowledge her as having an original philosophical contribution to make. So they felt that whatever she says, it has got no value, because whatever she's saying is what Sartre was saying. So that's what there's nothing original in her work. So she was presumed to be applying a masculinist existentialism due to her close lifelong relationship with Sartre. So from the 1960s onwards, the second sex became increasingly disparaged as contradictory and removed from the actual lives of real women. De Beauvoir's situation was regarded as being far removed from that of womankind. There was nothing that could say that the real life, what is happening, and the real women, what was happening in their life. There didn't seem to be anything which could be related to the second sex. It was increasingly being disparaged. The second sex was being increasingly critiqued for this. And de Beauvoir's analysis and descriptions were not representative of how women really do experience the world. So it didn't seem to be, completely representative, her work. A shift in feminist thought towards a more gynocentric one, celebrating the difference, cast her as old-fashioned. After Beauvoir, gynocentrism came about, which was covered yesterday by Elaine Showalter. So Elaine Showalter, when she introduces gynocentrism, so what happens is, things are moving in such a way that she was treated as old-fashioned, old school. And her feminism was critiqued as imperialistic and biased towards white, heterosexual, middle-class women, and that nothing to do with the other races. It was only focused on the white middle-class women. So, what was this influence of second sex on future feminist thought? So, different kinds of feminism came about. They were feminists with different isms were coming about as a result of Beauvoir's book. There were many people who were influenced by it, and one was Marxist feminism. I'll just rush through this. Marxist feminists were of the view that working class women are oppressed as workers and also within the home, where they reproduce the workforce for capitalism. Bourgeoisie women are controlled by their husbands. So that means even if the women who are at a higher class, they don't have to work. But what they do, they have to just sit and produce children to inherit wealth. Women who are undervalued by society have a position of lesser value and respect, and their expectations and aspirations are lower. So, this was Marxist feminism. Then you have radical feminism. Male dominance was viewed by radical feminists as the source of many social problems. They said that because of male dominance, we are having a lot of social problems in addition to gender inequality. And the task of radical feminism was to expose aspects of society which is male dominated, and they wanted to bring women's experiences and value as central to social life. They are trying to bring up the women, the role of women and their experiences. They wanted to bring it up onto the forefront. So that was radical feminism. Then you have social feminism. This account also recognizes that women are not just oppressed by the nature of their economic labor, but also by their gender. So it examines how patriarchy and capitalism operated as oppressive structures, and therefore it intersects the position of men and women within the social and economic order. So this is about social feminism. Then the two other ones are psychoanalytic feminists and post-structural feminists. They enter into a dialogue with de Beauvoir. And despite second sex has been written in a very different social and historical context to that of modern day, many of the issues raised are still pertinent even to this day. So, most of what is written in second sex may not hold good now, but there are certain things that are still pertinent. We still do have problems of the gender divide and all that is there, but many things have uh, happened over the years where women have been given a leading role to play in social, political and economic spheres. So hopefully there will be a time when there will not be a thing like this is only for males and that is only for females. These jobs are only meant for them, and that hopefully all those things we should be able to put it on an equal footing. It should be erased. That sort of inequality, we hope that it will be erased in the future. So, more to feminism. And well, with that, we come to the end of this block 6. One important thing you should note is that there is a poem by Kamala Das called My Introduction, which is at the beginning of this book. So, if you read that poem, in that poem, there are many things which Kamala Das mentions, which tell you, about what Woolf has been speaking, what Showalter has been speaking, what Beauvoir and everybody has been speaking. All these things, the bits and pieces of it, you can relate to that when you read Kamala Das's My Introduction. So it shows how women are treated and how, though she was a very well-known writer, poetess, and she had a very bohemian, I think, lifestyle that she had. And she was like like she was somebody who would have been taboo in that time, her society at that time, but she really fought for the for this gender concept and everything. She was totally against it, and she was quite influential in getting other people to write and to come out into the open. She was one of those first women who would have been like literally like Plath. She was like a confessional poetess. So whatever you read about her, the society that was there, and especially the oppression that she faced in all aspects of her life. So when you read all these people, Showalter, Beauvoir, Woolf, and Wollstonecraft, keep the reading this poem, my autobiography also, so you are able to find a link between what these women have written and uh, what Kamala Das is written in her poems. You can understand the society, about equality, about suppression, oppression, and women's rights. All these things you can you can understand about it when you read her poem. So, with that, we come to the end of the session. Thank you so much for being patient